So, interesting new study on morality. Psychologist at the University of Illinois at Chicago, Dr. Linda Skitka, was co-author of the paper, and she describes the research. They asked people about good deeds that they do throughout the day, so things that they do that are moral, and also bad deeds, the things that they do that are immoral. And one of the things they asked about are conservatives or liberals more moral? We'll get to that answer in a second. Also, are religious people or non-religious people more moral? Now, the common assumption would be that religious people are more moral. Of course, I don't believe that for a second, and it turns out, at least according to this study, I'm right. They say religious and non-religious people alike reported experiencing around the same number of moral acts. Turns out we're all humans. Shocking. Okay, now, how they perceived those acts, though, was different based on that different culture that they grew up in. So they say the only differences between religious and non-religious people included how they felt about and described moral acts. Religious people were more likely to express pride over performing moral acts. I thought pride was a sin, but okay, that's fine. Gratefulness over benefiting from moral acts, which is great. I love that they're grateful about that. But here comes the troubling part. And guilt and disgust over immoral ones. I really feel, look, obviously I'm not a religious person. I'm agnostic. I don't believe in any of the religions. But I feel bad for religious people. They carry around all this guilt, and they think that natural human urges that they have are disgusting, and they've been taught this. And they've got this huge weight on their shoulders that they carry on. They actually do the same exact things we do, the good and the bad. It's not like they do it any less, right, the bad deeds. But then they walk around, we're like, JR's mother's saying, our producer's mother's saying goes, we're walking in heaven, ironically. Not a care in the world. Like, oh, we just had some dirty sex. It was awesome, right? They're walking around like, oh my God, oh, I feel so bad. I'm guilty. I feel disgusting. Oh, why do you feel that? Didn't God make you, well, first of all, in his own image, which is fascinating, right? But he gave you life. You might want to live it. He gave you those urges. Was it all a big pop quiz? I'll give you all these urges. Make sure you don't have fun exercising any of them. And then at the end, if you pass the pop quiz, then I'll give you another life. Obviously, I don't think that's how it works. But I do know in the one life we have, you're walking around feeling bad about yourself for no reason at all. Okay, now, overall findings are also interesting. People reported committing good deeds more often than bad ones, and reported hearing about bad deeds more often than good ones. I'm amused by that, because what that means is, they're like, oh, I did more good deeds. Yeah, I know. Oh, the other guys, more bad deeds. I'm not sure that that self-reporting is accurate. And then they say the researchers also found that people who benefited from good deeds often paid them forward, doing something good for someone else later on. Now that's great. I'm very encouraged by that. I'm also really encouraged that religious people feel more gratitude about the good acts that have been done to them. So two really positive findings in the study, one overall and one for religious people specifically. Now on to political differences. Well, once again, there was actually, quote, no difference found between liberals and conservatives as to who did more moral deeds. Okay, now, again, there is one difference though. It's how they perceive things. Liberals more often mention moral phenomenon related to fairness and honesty. Those are what they considered the more important moral deeds. Fairness and honesty. Sounds pretty good to me, but then I'm a progressive. Very similar to a liberal, okay? How about conservatives? Conservatives more often mention moral phenomenon related to loyalty and disloyalty, or sanctity and degradation. Look, I don't agree. Like, I think loyalty is wonderful, and I care a lot about that. Okay, so I guess that part of me is conservative, right? And we all are to some degree, right? We're all on the spectrum somewhere. But why sanctity of what? Right? These words like honor, say you violated her honor, I'm mad, I'm going to kill you. The sanctity of this or that. Oh, do not degrade me, I will degrade you. Like, what are you obsessed with that nonsense for? To me, fairness and honesty are a million times more important. You would say that's why you're a liberal, right? Partly right. But also understand that I believe, and I could make a good case for it here, that it's also the more logical position. Because, for example, sanctity of a woman's virginity is something that conservatives care more about. But that's based on old rules, because in the old days, it was important to protect her virginity because she was property, and you were going to sell that property to someone to make a good transaction for your family. That's literally how marriages worked. So it was important to protect the sanctity of the property so that it wouldn't be devalued. We don't live in that world anymore. So when you care more about that, you are being fairly irrational. Whereas you should care a lot more about whether somebody's fair and honest and decent, etc. Now, of course, conservatives care about that too. They're on the spectrum, right? But liberals care more about those values, and you care about these things. Look, a lot of the religions do this. Like there's the religions where you can't cut your beard, and sometimes you can't, cut your nails, etc. Why? Because it's the sanctity of the body, and because it's from my religious text from several thousand years ago. Those are old rules that made sense back then that today make no sense whatsoever. And when you value them more, you are being irrational. But that's my take. You know where I stand. But now you know the facts about where religious people stand and liberals and conservatives do on morality.